Have you ever saw a really nice piece of furniture and thought to yourself, I wonder how they made that? Well, if you have, hang out with me for a few minutes. I'm going to walk you through what I did to build this custom oak desk. So I believe the first thing you have to do before tackling any project is you've got to ask yourself, how nice do you want this to be? How long do you want it to last? And what's your budget? For this desk, the customer chose to go with red oak, which is a solid hardwood, but also relatively budget friendly. In this clip, we're using our dado stack on our table saw to rip some 1/4 inch grooves inside our pieces. This is going to be very similar to what we would do to create a shaker panel. So we were basically making our mortise with the dado stack, and right here we're using our router to create the tenon. And as a side note, if you don't have a router table, that's okay. You could actually use your table saw to create the tenon as well. Now we're going to start the first stage of the glue up process. There was a lot of gluing on this job, mainly because we didn't want any nails showing. So in these video clips where you're seeing me use the nail gun, just note that these are going to be like on the inside of the boxes or in areas that you're not going to see. Also, these trim nails are only 5/8 inch long and 18 gauge. They're not for structural strength or anything. It's really just to hold stuff in place while the glue dries. The customer did give me a couple of inspiration pics, so we tried to build this desk as close to the pictures as possible. So if you find yourself wondering why we built it a certain way, that's probably why. This was also the first job I got to use my new bandsaw on. I've been wanting one of these for a really long time. This is going to allow me to do a lot of other really cool stuff. But the main reason that I needed it for this one was that the back panels and the legs had curves to them, which I could have used my jigsaw for the thinner pieces like these right here, because these are only 3/4 inches thick. But the legs were actually much thicker, and I wouldn't have been able to use my jigsaw for that, so it just made it a lot easier. One thing I did want to shed a little light on is that you don't have to have the best of tools to make a really nice piece of furniture. It does make things a little bit easier. That bandsaw is probably my first big piece that I've bought that actually cost a little bit of money. Most of the rest of the stuff I have is what most people consider job site tools. And I've built quite a bit of furniture over the last several years with just having the bare minimum. All right, all of our panels are pretty much put together at this point. I'm taking my belt sander here and just smoothing this leg out to get it pretty uniform. After that, we took our biscuit joiner and we'll go ahead and cut in our slots for all the biscuits. Remember, we didn't want a lot of nails on this job, so we're pretty much gluing everything up, and I thought this might be the best way to go about it. Biscuits aren't going to give you a ton of structural strength. They will on this particular job a little bit, but more than anything, we're using these to align the panels. If you've never used a biscuit joiner and you're not really sure how, just leave a comment below. I'd love to help you out. They may seem intimidating, but they're actually pretty easy to use and super helpful. Just using my rubber brush here, I'm trying to get that glue all across the end panels there, and I'm using my rubber mallet to tap them together. Once we've got them together, I'm using my clamps, and we're just going to clamp these down. A lot of times when I'm doing my glue ups, I like to let it sit for a good 12 hours. So a lot of times I'll just glue it up and then I'll let it sit overnight and get back at it in the morning. And in case you were wondering, they have different size biscuits. So personally, I like to use as big of a biscuit as I can, depending on what I'm working with. There's a setting on the biscuit joiner that will adjust the blade based on the size of the biscuit you're using. Alright, so this is the last panel we got to put on here. We're going to go ahead and get this put together, clamp it down really good, and let it dry, and then we're going to start on the drawers. For the drawers, we're going to use some pocket holes, so that's what we're doing right here. And then we're going to use a little bit of glue and some trim nails to tack it together. But as far as the trim nails goes, we're going to use those where they won't be seen. Normally, I'll use 3/4 inch plywood for the bottoms of my drawer boxes, but we went ahead and upgraded on this desk, so everything pretty much is solid oak. The only thing we used for plywood was the 1/4 inch plywood we used on the side panels. One thing I don't guess I got a lot of footage was of the sanding. The sanding process for this was pretty typical of most of my normal projects. We started out with 80 grit and kind of did all the rough sanding, and then we went to 120. And then after that, there was a lot of hand sanding. I used a lot of 220 for that. Now, full disclosure, this was my first time using this type of finish. Normally, I'd just do like a stain and then some type of polyacrylic or polyurethane for the sealer. But this brand right here is Watco. It was a medium walnut Danish oil that we pretty much just rubbed on. I will admit, though, I did like the finish. It went on very easily and gave us a nice even coat. Well, as we wrap this up, I just want to say big thank you for everybody that took their time to watch it. Hope y'all enjoyed it, and I hope y'all loved the finished product as much as we did. We'll see you later.